You're gonna love this one. Before The View took a permanent battle position against Donald Trump, we got to see some priceless moments of heated debate and friction between them live on air that maybe we'll never see again. And in this timeless conversation before Barack Obama's second presidency, Donald Trump's response to being construed as a birther conspiracy theorist gives us an insight to how he thinks. As usual, Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg couldn't handle it, so take a look at the next clip before I tell you more about it.
You recently said about President Obama, I'm going to quote you, he grew up and nobody knew him. Nobody knows who he is until later in his life. The whole thing is very strange. What are you driving at there? Are you a birther, Donald?
Okay, let me just tell you. I was a really good student at the best school. I'm not like a smart guy, okay? They make these birthers into the worst idiots. Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? I think he probably...
He have to?
Because I have to, and everybody else has to, Whoopi.
I'm sure
why
that you
wouldn't
can't
he show...
his birth
Excuse me.
certificate.
Why? No, excuse me. I really believe there's a birth certificate. Why? Look, she's smiling. Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? And you know what? I wish he would, because I think it's a terrible pall that's hanging over him.
By the way, subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this. It's truly a sight to see them on the same panel, given the hostility they share now. But I want to give you some context on the chronology of the so-called birther conspiracy that's useful when it comes to Donald Trump. This show was recorded just 2 months before the Obama campaign came out and finally released Barack Obama's certificate of live birth on the 27th of April, 2011. After calls for even more clarity over his citizenship and birth, the campaign soon came forward with the long-form birth certificate stating that he was born in Hawaii, and despite the fact that Donald Trump has been somewhat spearheading the calls for the release of that certificate, you see him frame it more as a question of why it hadn't been done and over with, rather than a claim he could stake his name on. Now, obviously, the larger conspiracies around Obama's citizenship and religion are a subject that can be traced all the way back to 2004, and it's something that has great resonance to those on the far right. Trump himself has tried to sit on the fence of that, hesitating to be lumped together with the racist strands that fed on those theories, but it's regrettable this conflation is exactly what you see on this panel with The View, only to be responded to this similar fence-sitting by Trump and reframing the demand more as a question. And what happened just 2 months after this episode when Obama's campaign finally came out with a certificate after at least 3 years of those theories? Donald Trump spoke to the press and finally distanced himself from them by saying this.
Good morning. Today, I'm very proud of myself because I've accomplished something that nobody else has been able to accomplish. I was just informed while on the helicopter that our president has finally released a birth certificate. I'd want to look at it, but I hope it's true so that we can get on to much more important matters, so the press can stop asking me questions. He should have done it a long time ago. Why he didn't do it when the Clintons asked for it, why he didn't do it when everybody else was asking for it, I don't know. But I am really honored, frankly, to have played such a big role in hopefully getting rid of this issue. Now, we have to look at it. We have to see, is it real? Is it proper? What's on it? But I hope it checks out beautifully. I am really proud. I am really honored. We can get on to issues, and hopefully when I sit down with interviews, people don't start talking about birth certificate, like they've been doing.
The key issue is largely phased out of the public psyche, particularly after 2016 when it no longer remained relevant for Donald Trump politically to probe the authenticity of those certificates as he claimed he would do. But before that could happen, Trump had a few words to say on The View that got Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the panel pretty riled up.
People remember me. Nobody from those early years.
That's not true. We have pictures of them. What are you talking about?
Okay, show me a picture.
There are kids in Hawaii. There are people in Hawaii. There are people that he's grown up. No, as
I haven't seen early pictures. But more importantly, why doesn't he? And you know what? I think he probably was, but the word probably, Whoopi.
Why did he have to defend himself against?
You know why?
Against an accusation.
Because if you're going to be the president, because if you're going to be the president of the United States, it says very profoundly that you have to be born in this country.
But did any other president do that? Did George Bush not be the president?
And there you see it, Whoopi trying to introduce a needless race element to the discussion when literally no one on the panel even brought that up. That's a classic example of what Donald Trump has become intertwined with, in not just with the particular subject, but also a larger pattern of the culture. The easiest way to discredit an idea like this is to attach it to the fringes of the end of the political spectrum, and to a degree, Donald Trump may not have done enough to explicitly distance himself from those fringes, inadvertently feeding into the hands of people that would love nothing more than to make that conflation. For example, take a look at this town hall moment where a questioner asked a question laden with some pretty racist and problematic assumptions.
We have a problem in this country. It's called Muslims. We know our current president is one.
Right.
You know he's not even an American.
We need this
birth
question.
certificates,
This is the
man.
first question.
When can we get rid of?
We're going to be looking at a lot of different things. And, a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are saying that bad things are happening out there. We're going to be looking at that and plenty of other things.
Did you notice the reaction of the people in the audience, clearly disgusted and wanting nothing to do with those presumptions? Donald Trump would do best to understand that pushing back into uncertain terms against ideas like that and distancing himself from people like this questioner is the best way to disarm his harshest critics like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar in this example.
No one has ever asked George Bush or said to George Bush, is Hawaii not part of the United States?
George Bush. And I'm not saying I was a fan of George Bush.
No.
You know that better than anybody. But George Bush was born in this country. That's
isn't Hawaii still part of the United States? Am I gone?
Do you question whether he was or not because he hasn't come forward with it?
I grew up in New York. Wall Street was a big part. I have seen fraud, and I have seen scandal, and I have seen things that a lot of people don't see. I've seen people take a $100 bill and make it $1 million bill.
We're going to have to pause. Get to the point.
Okay. The point is, I can't rely on some newspaper that they show
in order to become president of the United States, in order to
I
get
want
a
him to
driver's
show his
license,
birth certificate. I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh my God!
That's a terrible
that is
thing.
just
Whoopi, I'm telling you.
He was 3 pounds and
Whoopi, I love you. I'm telling
I love
you.
you too. I think that's the biggest pile of dog mess I've heard in ages.
That friction between Whoopi and Trump has continued to this day, to the point that Whoopi has vowed not even to take his name anymore on the show.
You know who.
This segment is a perfect example why. You can see every time Donald Trump calmly says something that sets the rest of the panel off, while Whoopi Goldberg tries to construe it in the worst possible light and get worked up about it. And you see that happen all the more when a discussion veers so close to contentious issues in America, like race or religion.
I've never heard any white president ask to be shown the birth certificate. When you become a president of the United States of America, you know that he's American. I'm sorry, that's BS.
Are you saying that it just only lets people have doubt? Do you want to talk about The Apprentice?
Doesn't matter. It's doing great. The ratings are through the roof. This is more interesting.
But we have to pause. We'll have more of this when we come back.
It's likely that we may never see that kind of on-air heated debate like this between Trump and The View again, given the strong words they've spoken for one another, but while it certainly does make for good television, it also is true that two hotheads coming at each other, while not really making an attempt to give them the benefit of the doubt, means the audience is hardly more informed after the fact. But it's still a really interesting window into when you look back more than a decade ago, with that The View has largely still remained the same as a platform for ill-informed sensationalism, rather than truly engaging in any meaningful debate.